lot of people like hear OCD and they just like think like, oh, but I'm like super organized, like classic. Why is that not true?
If you are someone who's excessively worrying all day long, you can't sleep, it's the first thing you do when you wake up, probably an indicator of OCD. A lot of reassurance seeking is probably an indicator you have OCD. I think everybody's mother has said to them, it should be easy.
Do they?
You're so young.
Because I'm like, fuck, it's not always easy.
No.
It's not. Hi guys, and welcome back to Real the Expert series. Today, I have a girly that is so near and dear to my heart. She is an OCD specialist, and we've done a live together that everyone absolutely freaked out over because it was just so informational and so good. So I am so excited to have her on the pod today. Julia Resnick is a senior psychotherapist at BU Psychotherapy. Specializing in anxiety, OCD, and chronic illness, she draws on her own experiences to connect with clients in their 20s and 30s through empathy, humor, and authenticity. Seriously, as a girl with OCD, this episode means the world to me, and I'm so glad, and I hope you guys don't mind that I definitely was drawing from my own experiences too. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and please don't forget to subscribe and give this a 5-star rating and review if you haven't already. It will mean so much to me. Thank you guys, and enjoy this episode. Hi Julia, thank you so much for coming on the pod. We've already been yapping.
We have. Unfortunately, we have.
But I'm so glad you're here today because we did a live, like, how long ago was that?
I don't even, maybe a year ago.
A year ago?
Yeah.
We did a live a year ago on OCD, and I guess this was maybe when I realized you really like specialized in OCD. Maybe I didn't realize before. But we really dove into like relationship OCD and kind of like our own stories, and it was the best. I think it was like beneficial for I know it was beneficial for so many people. Like we got so much feedback after that. And it was incredible. So I was like, obviously you have to be one of the experts to come on and chat.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to yap, as we always do. And I think especially our live on OCD, I think I got a lot of feedback of, I feel so crazy, it feels so isolating. And so I think especially these conversations are so helpful to say, oh no, what you're feeling is completely normal. So I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad we're talking about it again.
Same. Okay, I feel like we have to start from the ground up. So for anyone that's just like not aware, what is OCD?
Yeah, so OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. If you go on Google, the definition you'll see is reoccurring obsessional thoughts that lead to compulsive behaviors. But how I describe it to my clients, I'm very big on psychoeducation as the first line of treatment before we do anything. And I describe it as 4 pillars. You have certainty, perfection, control, and logic. So typically any intrusive thought you're having, any rumination, any compulsion is because someone with OCD loves perfection, they love control, they love certainty, and they find logic in their thoughts. And so for example, that just means if you have an intrusive thought, your brain says, why did you just think that? What does that mean about you? You assign meaning to your thoughts. That's a really common component of OCD. So everything we'll talk about today is really all going to lead back to those 4 pillars. And I think it's a more digestible way of explaining OCD.
Yeah, and also as someone that has OCD, I've never thought about it as like you're trying to validate your own thoughts, like you're trying to find truth in it. But it's so true because it's like that's how you that's how the thoughts fuel each other. Like that's how it keeps happening. So it's really interesting that you put it that way because I really feel it. Like that's like a main symptom for me. I think a lot of people like hear OCD and they just like think like, oh, but I'm like super organized, like classic.
Yep.
Why is that not true? And like, what are the typical like symptoms that show up? I know it's obviously so different for every person, but like, what are some typical symptoms?
So what you see in the media is the cleanliness, the organization, the perfectionist, and you can certainly be a perfectionist and not have OCD. But I think what people don't know is what I just said about logic, finding logic and assigning meaning into your thoughts. People don't realize is OCD, reassurance seeking, asking your parents, your friends, your partner for reassurance. Really those ruminations, the what ifs, the amount of time that you're ruminating, I would say people don't realize that's OCD. It's really just that excessive worrying and the compulsions that come with it. It's not just the shutting off the lights 3 or 4 times and cleaning your apartment and making sure everything has a place. That's more widespread in the media, but it's really debilitating, especially those obsessional thinking rumination spirals.
What are some things that might not be like typical OCD, but it shows up for certain people. Like, for example, for me.
Yeah.
And we kind of just touched on this when you're like, it can be numbers. Like growing up, my thing was always like, I would touch my hands in a certain way, like my fingernails, things like that. Or I would like, let's say I'm like pulling a piece of toilet paper, like it had to be 6.
Yeah.
And like everything has to be 6. If I go to sleep at night, the clock, like it has to be an even number, or it has to be like a 4. It can't be a 2. Like I assign bad versus good numbers, and something bad will happen.
Yep.
What is like another symptom that can be typical or like that, or sorry, not typical or like that people can find with OCD?
I think intrusive thoughts. I think what's typical is what you just described, and what's typical is checking if the stove is off, checking if your flat iron is off. I think what you just described, I have clients that'll say, I need to lock my door 6 times because I have 6 family members. And if I don't lock it 6 times, one of them is going to die. There's this consequence, so they have to give in to the compulsion to relieve the anxiety. I think what's not talked about enough is, for example, our OCD.
Right.
These really debilitating, intrusive thoughts of, or maybe you're driving and it's, if I don't make this light, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
You have these really severe intrusive thoughts. Typical ones are, what if I'm gay? What if I kill myself? What if I harm somebody else? Those are major themes that I see a lot, that you wouldn't know anybody sitting in front of you has those obsessional OCD patterns because they're just in their heads.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know if we had a sleepover and you were looking at the clock obsessively. I'd be like, oh, I guess she's not tired.
Right.
Right? And then, but it's a very invisible thing.
Yeah. I feel like everyone sometime in their life has had like an intrusive thought, but what makes it like an OCD intrusive thought?
Everybody has intrusive thoughts, yes. What makes it OCD is the stickiness to it. Let's say I'm going to use a lot of examples. I hope that lands.
That helps so much.
Okay, I think it'll land better to give examples.
Does.
So let's say you were driving your family on the GW bridge and you had an intrusive thought, what if I just drove us off this bridge? The average person would say, oh, that was weird. Turn up the music, whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody with OCD says, why did I just have that thought? Do I want to harm my family? What does that mean about me? Am I not safe to be driving? And they analyze the thought, and then those compulsions come later of asking your dad, do you think I'm a good driver? Do you trust me to drive?
Interesting.
Do you ever have these thoughts? And so an intrusive thought everybody has. Somebody with OCD, it's stickier for them.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then what about like impulsive thoughts? And is that a part of OCD, or is that a separate thing?
I would say it's a separate thing. Again, an impulsive thought can feel like intrusive where in the sense of it pops in really quick maybe.
Right.
Like an intrusive thought can pop in randomly. But an impulsive thought, the way I describe it is the emotion underneath. If we have an impulsive thought, I'm excited about it. We should buy that bag right now. I feel like I want to go toward that action. Or an intrusive thought, I move away. I'm panicked by my intrusive thoughts. I'm disturbed. I'm uncomfortable. I feel anxious around an intrusive thought of, what if something bad happens to me?
Gotcha.
I'm moving away. I'm not excited about that. Where impulsively, you're moving toward that action. I think that's the best way to distinguish.
Yeah. How do you explain to like clients when you're having those like thoughts, they feel so real? Like you're like, no, my family will die.
Yep.
How do you explain like why that happens, and like how does someone rationalize that? Like how do you even like go through, I mean, obviously we'll talk about treatment like later in the episode, but how do you explain that to a client of like why this is happening to me?
A few things. I think one, first I validate the feelings and how scary that is. Because typically when you treat an intrusive thought, you don't want to react to it.
Yeah.
But when somebody's really scared a family member is going to die, I have to sit with them for a second and say, what is that like to say out loud? What is that like to be thinking before you go to bed or all day incessantly that you're scared your mom's going to die? And so first we kind of process how scary this is. I think just meeting a client where they're at emotionally in the OCD is extremely important. And then psychoeducation. OCD attacks the things we care about most. So once we put it on our top priority list, our relationship, our family, our morality, our identity, our health, OCD says, oh, you care about that? Let me grip onto it and give you all the OCD, doubt, and fear. So it's really common to have OCD about your family. What if your family's going to die? What if he's not the one? What if I blurt something out at work? Because you really care about work. You really care about your relationship. And so just validating, like, this is why it's happening to you, how scary it is, yet still we do need to tolerate the discomfort that you are magical thinking. If you don't turn the doorknob twice, that does not mean your mom's going to die. That's what we call magical thinking.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting. What about people that like suffer from, I mean, I know for me personally, I'm going to use a lot of personal examples in this just as a warning, because it's like one of the subjects like during this series that I relate to the most. Like I really have had so many firsthand experiences with OCD and like how debilitating it is. People with anxiety. I find that like for me, my anxiety and my OCD are BFFs.
Yep.
Explain why that is and what's the likeliness, I guess, of like having anxiety and then developing like an OCD kind of thing with it.
They're very similar. They're kind of what you just said.
Yeah.
To get technical, in the DSM, OCD used to be under anxiety disorders. In the DSM-5, I think 2013, they were separate. And so now there's really an emphasis on OCD being its own disorder. But you have anxiety when you're experiencing OCD. Somebody with an anxiety disorder doesn't necessarily have OCD. They don't necessarily need to have those compulsions. That's what distinguishes the OCD. But if you have an intrusive thought, of course you're going to be anxious as a result. What's happening is your brain, your amygdala is misfiring that you are not safe. When your body tells you you're not safe, what do you feel? Nervous, anxious, worried, fear. And so anxiety is a huge part of OCD.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about that like fight or flight situation that happens when you're in an OCD spiral? So like, okay, I'm trying to think of an example. Like let's say you have a fear of like throw up or something.
It's a good one.
Because I feel like this is a common one.
Yes, that is.
So then you start having like obsessive, you're in the grocery store, I'm nauseous. Oh my God, and then that turns into the anxiety spiral. Why does that like happen often? Why is it that the anxiety and the OCD kind of fuel each other? And what do you do when you're in those spirals? Like you're out in public and you're having that. How do you address the OCD or do you address the anxiety part? Like, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't get too into the nitty gritty of do I address this? Do I address that? Because I think in the moment in the grocery store, you're not regulated enough to say, what's my anxiety? What's my OCD? Where should I go first? What's happening is you're really focused on your somatic symptoms. I feel lightheaded. I feel kind of nauseous. And you're convincing yourself that you might throw up. Why this is happening is because your brain, like I said before, is misfiring that you are not safe. And so what happens here is that your brain is demanding certainty. It's demanding control. It's giving you a false sense of urgency. That's what OCD does. That's why in those spirals in the grocery store, your heart's going to race. You might become sweaty. You might actually feel like you're going to throw up. I have a lot of clients that when they're anxious, let's say the night before an exam, they do throw up. And that's kind of part of their treatment. And sometimes I say to them, okay, we're going to throw up and then you're going to go and do great. Sometimes that's part of it. And so in treating that, it's a client might say to me, what if I throw up at the grocery store? I would say, what if? Keep a bag on you. You run to the bathroom. What's the worst case scenario? And they tell me, I don't know, what if I throw up on all of the apples? Oof. I'm not providing reassurance. I'm staying very grounded and saying, I don't know, what if? Because I don't want to give you reassurance. Oh my God, what if you do throw up in the grocery store? That would be horrific. Because it's the same thing of a panic attack. Someone says, what if I have a panic attack? What if? We'll deal with it when it happens.
It's so big, bad, and scary when you think about it and when you have a real fear or a phobia of something like that. Like, again,
100%.
With the throw up thing, just because I feel like a lot of people suffer from emetophobia. I see this with like, I feel like OCD kind of plays hand in hand with that. Like people are constantly hyping themselves up. And then it's like so hard to be like, oh, what if? Like, it's so difficult when you are in that moment. Oh, that's what I was going to say before. Like,
we found it. What's happening? What's the question?
So when you're in fight or flight, how do you talk yourself down?
Oh, that's where you were going.
That's where I was going.
That's where the disengaging affirmations come in. It's what I call them. And every client, or like coming to me with anxiety, OCD, whatever it is, we make a list of affirmations. And so, for example, if I'm in the grocery store and I think I'm going to throw up, I probably go to the side somewhere. I wouldn't be in the middle of the chaos. I'd go to the side, or I would take gigantic deep breaths. And that's when the affirmations would come in. I'm safe. My brain is misfiring. What's the worst case scenario? I throw up all over my shoes. I'll just throw them out. I'll call my mom and cry. I go through worst case scenario and I make a little bit of a joke of it, take it less seriously. Really being able to self-soothe. I can tolerate discomfort. Maybe you're on an airplane. What if I throw up? What if I have a panic attack? I've been uncomfortable before. I can tolerate discomfort. I'm safe. Really training and understanding to your brain, I'm okay.
Okay, one last part of this.
Yeah.
What if you have an obsession with the embarrassment of it? How do you tackle that? It's like on top of all of the anxiety that you're going through, the panic, then you add the element of like, oh my God, I'm in my local grocery store and people are, I keep going back to this reference because it's like an easy one, but like people are around me, like people might be watching. Like how, is it the same thing where like you're going to go in with affirmations and like talk yourself down?
The instance there, the affirmation I would give my client is, so what?
Yeah.
What if I'm in my local grocery store and I see the cute boy that I like and he watches me gag? Tragic. So tragic. But as their therapist, I would say, so what? And I think an important part of this, because it might come off as blunt or harsh as your therapist, when your therapist says to you, I don't know, so what? The reason why I'm able to come to sessions so grounded is because I take a lived-in approach of, I have anxiety and OCD. Yeah. I know the thoughts that you're having. I've been in that panic. I've been in that spiral. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And I also say to a client, this is practice. That disengaging affirmation of so what is not going to work the first few times you're in the grocery store, and that sucks. But that's why it's work to really focus and heal and your OCD to get better, is you just have to expose yourself to what makes you uncomfortable over and over, and then eventually you desensitize to it.
If someone grew up with perfectionism like tendencies, what's the connection there with OCD? And like why it seems, and I don't know if there are studies on this, I feel like high achievers really are the ones that suffer a lot from it. Or at least maybe that's just what I see. What's the connection there? And do you know if there's a connection there?
I think there has to be, because one of the 4 pillars I came up with OCD is perfection. Yeah. And so, again, I think you can be a type A high achiever perfectionist and not have OCD. That certainly exists. But I will say my clients with OCD are amazing. They're high achievers. They're ambitious. They care a lot about what they do. And that's why they have severe OCD about it. Yeah. But a lot of the time someone says to me, I'm so anxious. And I say, you're anxious because you care. Yeah. And so I think being a perfectionist, being high achieving, if that comes with a little bit of anxiety, I think that's okay. It's your brain trying to protect you, saying, what are all the risks here? Yeah. And so I definitely think there's a connection there. And that's the price you pay. Yeah. And I think in those sessions, I tell those clients, be gentle with yourself. Just do the best you can. Who's put this pressure on you? Who's telling you this narrative? Your mom, your dad? Is it you? Is it society? We really dig into those narratives as to why they have to be perfect.
Right. Before we jump into relationship OCD, because like obviously that's
our favorite topic.
Our favorite topic ever. What are some things that someone that like thinks they might have OCD, like what are some actions they can take to like start out? And like what are some questions maybe they can ask themselves just to kind of see if maybe this is something they're actually suffering from. Just like a first step to take if they're thinking, oh, maybe this does sound like me a little bit.
Don't go on Google. I'll say that. Anybody with OCD, especially undiagnosed OCD, is on Reddit and Google. Yeah. Please don't do that.
WebMD, that was my shit back in the day.
Exactly. If you resonate, you know. Yeah. I think the first thing is I would say to reach out to a therapist, because I think the first step is psychoeducation. If you don't want to reach out to a therapist, I think there's a website and a practice called NoCD, NOCD. They have amazing trainings. They have a lot of resources. They have a lot of education. You need to go to the right spot to figure out if you have OCD, because Google and Reddit can also be a place to give you reassurance, and then you get stuck there and you get anxious there. Right. So I think definitely going to the proper resources, I can definitely share, and getting the proper education. Yeah. In terms of examples, I would say the time spent worrying. If you are someone who's excessively worrying all day long, you can't sleep, it's the first thing you do when you wake up, probably an indicator of OCD. Some reassurance seeking if you find yourself, mom, dad, sister, partner, do you think I'm a bad person? Do you still love me? A lot of reassurance seeking is probably an indicator you have OCD. And just those what if spirals, the excessiveness is what makes it a little OCD.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, relationship OCD. What is it? I feel like
I don't know why I'm clapping. It's horrific. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Yay.
Literally, because like it's like the bane of my existence, but also thank God for our conversation because it's that. I mean, if you guys haven't heard it, honestly, go back on my Instagram, your Instagram, and
yes,
listen
check it
to
out. OCD
really
therapy with Julia.
Yeah. It like opened my eyes to a lot of things. I just genuinely thought either like I was in the wrong relationship or I was crazy.
Yep.
And I'm going to be very real about like real.
Get real with Carly Weinstein.
No, like I'm going to be blunt about a lot of the stuff that I've experienced because I feel like no one's talking about it.
They're not. No.
So for those who haven't heard of it, what is it? And like why does it just come from people that already have existing OCD or can it be its own thing?
It can certainly pop up if you haven't had a diagnosis of OCD. Same thing with postpartum. I have new moms that are randomly having intrusive thoughts about hurting their baby and they've never had them before. I will say I have clients who I diagnose with OCD and we go back to their childhood and we're like, that was a little OCD.
Yeah.
Probably had these symptoms. So again, I think it depends on the person, but our OCD is relationship OCD. And so what that means is what we said before, once you really care about something, your brain gives immense fear and doubt on it. And so when we enter a new relationship or a serious one, a healthy one, we get engaged, we move in with our partner, we get married, your brain says, well, are you sure? You're engaged and other people post that it's their soulmate. Is he your soulmate? Well, how do you know? You actually weren't in the mood to be intimate the other night. Are you not attracted to him? It's just constant analysis mode, I would describe as our OCD. And I think those examples really speak to that.
How can you tell the difference between like doubts and like OCD? And like this is the biggest problem and this is why it's the bane of my existence. Sometimes as women, we just have a gut instinct. Other times we're having a fucking OCD spiral.
Totally.
How do I know if it's my gut telling me something's really wrong or if I'm just being insane?
Right. Well, we're always insane. We're just kooky. We're kooky people.
Yeah.
This is my least favorite question because every single client who has ROCD says to me, Julia, how do I know if it's my gut and how do I know if it's OCD and what's a red flag and what's not?
Yeah.
And what I typically say to my clients is when you're in an OCD flare, you don't have a gut. You're not connected enough with your authentic self and your intuition to really be able to be regulated enough to say, no, this feels very true. Because your OCD is saying, no, this is true.
It's so scary though because as a person like that like has OCD, the perfectionism thing, like I always feel so connected to myself, like so overly connected to myself.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just.
No, but your brain is telling you, no, Carly, this is true.
Yeah.
You should worry about this. And it demands you to find certainty. And it says, is he the one? How do you know? And then you ruminate until you find certainty. And to give everybody the answer, you never find the certainty.
Yeah.
OCD always says that 1% chance of uncertainty is always going to remind you of that. And so I didn't answer the question, so let me answer it. But I just had to say it's a question everybody asks me that I've asked my therapist myself. And really how I distinguish it is your gut, your intuition feels like a whisper. Your OCD or ROCD feels like a panic. What if he's not the one? I almost do the imagery of this with my clients. What if he's not the one? How do I know? Where a rational doubt sounds like, Julia, me and my partner, we're in our 20s, we're in our 30s, we're hustling, we're grinding in our careers, and it's hard to connect. I would say beautiful. That's a really lovely doubt. And we would talk about what the ROCD does on top of that. If you can't connect in your 20s, how are you going to be connected once you have kids?
Right.
If you don't feel like being intimate now, you'll never have sex when you're, 80. If you can't connect now, then we go out to dinner. Are we connecting at dinner? Is the conversation good enough?
Right.
That constant analysis mode, that's the ROCD. And I also use this example. There's always a kernel of reality. There's a kernel of insecurity, and that's I feel disconnected to my partner and I'm insecure that it's really hard to get back to connection. That's the insecurity right there. Right. The OCD takes over the whole flavor of the popcorn. We have a kernel. Here's an insecurity, right? That's very valid that you have with your partner. The OCD says, oh my God, what are we going to do about it? We need to solve this right now.
Yeah. No,
does that help answer it? There's nothing you're thinking about in your relationship that's completely irrational. You are in this relationship and I can't answer if it's a red flag or not.
Yeah.
I'm not you.
Yeah.
And that sucks for my client.
No, it makes so much sense. And it's very clear that like when you make the face and like when you're like saying that like panic, like that's, I can picture a lot of my spirals to start from like that little tiny little kernel thing, the little kernel that happens. And then it turns into me like feeling like all hell breaks loose. Like now I'm analyzing the whole relationship. Is this right? Should we be doing this? And it's always, I feel like with my OCD, and I don't know about other people if this is common, I constantly compare. Like that's a big OCD thing for me. So what is this couple doing? Especially, okay, my parents have been married for over 30 years. So beautiful relationship. And my dad is like, he's like my idol. Yeah. And so I always was like, I want to marry someone just like my dad.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Which is like, really, it's cute. I don't mean it in like a weird way, but you know, like you either go exactly what your parents are like or totally different. And I'm very blessed that I have great role models. And when I look at my current boyfriend or when I was dating, does this match up? Does this line up? Is this a 30-year marriage? Like it was always the comparison of how my parents are. So even to this day, I fought with my boyfriend before. I hear my mom's voice in my head, it should be easy, it should be easy, it should be easy.
I really want to know. I think everybody's mother has said to them, it should be easy.
Do they?
You're so young.
Because I'm like, fuck, it's not always easy. No. It's not. It's really not. And when I say it to my therapist is like, no, it's not always easy. That's not reality.
No.
But what is the, like, I don't know, how
we're lost again. Someone find her.
Someone find me. No, I don't know. How does it like affect those healthy relationships? Like how does it play a role when you're going through a healthy relationship and it affects those healthy relationships?
It's a great question because it affects them heavily. And I think to respond to what you said before, comparison is a huge trigger. Yeah. I will tell my clients, get off TikTok, get off Instagram because like I said before, somebody says, happy birthday to my soulmate. I've never had a doubt and I love you with all my heart. And then I have a client saying, but I have doubts, but I don't know if I love them with all my heart. And they feel so completely triggered. And then that creates an OCD spiral.
Right.
And so just to respond to that comparison, it's a severe trigger that I really try to tell my clients, if you are in a flare up with your OCD, you can't look at the couple Instagrams and the couple YouTubes and that whole thing because you're going to just compare. Again, I think if a listener of yours, a big follower of yours listening to this podcast, they might think Carly has the most perfect relationship. She finally met her guy. They moved in together. They look so cute and perfect. Meanwhile, I know sitting here as a therapist and being real, it's not perfect. Nobody's relationship is perfect. And I think OCD wants perfection.
Yeah. And I think that's the part where, for me, I'm like, I have a healthy relationship. But that's where it affects mine because then in my brain, I don't think that. I'm like trying to convince myself all the reasons why it's not.
Yes, that's what our OCD does.
Yeah.
It incessantly says to you, you should break up with your boyfriend. You should break up with your boyfriend. Are you sure? Are you sure that you're sure?
Like it's a crazy thing that no one could have ever warned me.
I know.
About what that's like. But then it's like, how do you explain that to your partner? Like how, because your partner's about to be really offended. I know mine probably is. Like, it's really hard to sit there and listen to your partner and be like, I'm like having doubts because like, I don't know what the hell is going on right now. And I'm freaking out. Like, how do you go about that?
I will say, so obviously I have OCD and I have ROCD and my partner has said to me before, if you ever break up with me, I'm probably going to follow up in a week and see if you still feel that way because you probably won't.
Yeah.
Bless his heart, he doesn't have an ego. He's so sweet and it does not affect our relationship. I'm also an expert in my OCD. I'm not blurbing out and saying, oh my God, I was having a doubt about you today. I have a control over it, but I think to answer your question before of how it affects healthy relationships, it's that. It's a partner saying, I feel so completely criticized by you. I feel like I can't win. I feel like you're always doubting us. I feel like maybe I'm not the right person for you, and they feel wrong. And I think also it can lower libido. If you feel so disconnected to your partner with so many intrusive thoughts, your sex life is going to suffer. Because I think males are more spontaneous with sex and females are more responsive.
100%.
And so a female needs to be really relaxed and feel grounded and feel sexy and feel clear in their minds to want to be intimate. And if you are having intrusive thoughts that this is not your person and he's the wrong one, and what if he's and are you even into this, and he's kissing you, and do I even want to kiss? Your sex life is then affected. And so it's the connection with your partner, all of that, and your partner's self-esteem being really lowered by you. Meanwhile, your authentic self, oh my God, I love Ethan so much, right? Authentic Carly says, I'm in the best, most healthy relationship. Your OCD brain says, but what if?
And it's interesting, I feel like for a lot of people, it almost attacks like the healthy relationships, because at least for me, and I know this for you too, like we're very self-aware. We have a lot of like control, and like I feel like have like that healthy relationship with love and whatever. And I feel like that's where it affects it so much. Like it's like the people that are more grounded, and that's why it's so scary. So it's like for people like us, where do you go next? Like where's the point of therapy? Where's the point of therapy's not working for me anymore? Like, how do you know what steps to even take?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the ROCD, I think cluing your partner in. Yeah. I think I do sessions with my individual clients, and I will say, have your partner come in for 1 or 2 sessions. I'm not conducting couples therapy, but what I'm doing is helping their partner, giving them some psychoeducation of also stop reassuring her. You might go to Ethan, do you still like me? Do you think that we're still going to love each other when we're 60? I would say to Ethan, do not respond to her. Say maybe not. I don't know. I'm not 60. And I think because once you become an expert in your OCD, your partner then becomes an expert, and they don't reassure you. They don't give in. They're saying, hey, I think you're getting a little irrational. Let's circle back on this tomorrow. Why? I believe you should go to sleep angry if you have OCD.
Really?
There's a lot of people who say don't go to bed angry. If you are in an OCD spiral and you are so activated, dysregulated, you are not getting grounded before the night ends. Sometimes it takes my client to wake up, say to their partner, I'm feeling grounded. I can think clearly. Can we talk about this one more time? And a great patient partner says, yes, of course. What do you need?
Do you ever suggest, because I relate to that a lot, like getting activated and like almost like I can't regulate my emotions.
Yeah.
Do you suggest literally like, can you go to sleep next to each other and say goodnight and kind of table the argument or table whatever's going on? Like kind of just like kiss goodnight? Or do you literally suggest like, separate, don't talk? Like,
I think it depends on the couple. I think personally, you never want to really create a tear in your relationship that you're going to really need to repair. So I would probably say co-regulate a little bit. What I mean by that is maybe you're so activated and irrational that you can't come down and you can't come to a solution. I would probably say, can you give each other a hug? Can you spoon? Can you give each other a kiss? Can he scratch your head? Co-regulation is really important when one partner is activated and the other is more grounded. I tell all my couples this, can you co-regulate? Can you give her a hug, a tight hug, and say, it's okay. You know, can Ethan say to you, we don't have to solve this tonight. We love each other. We're having a disagreement. We don't have a solution right now. We don't have certainty. We don't have control. We don't have perfection right now. So Carly's activated and triggered, and still go to bed and say, we're okay. I'm going to see you in the morning, and we're going to sort it out.
Yeah. That's like the hardest part, I think, is like that sitting with it and the just being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So for the partner, like if there was something that you could tell your partner in order to guide them as someone with OCD, like what would you say is like the best advice? And obviously like, because I think my problem is like I can't teach my partner always how to recognize my OCD moments. Like they're not always going to recognize it. So then how do you help them help you? Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I think there's accountability. I think it can't be up to your partner to say, oh, I think this is an OCD thing. I think accountability on the client's part in having OCD and being able to distinguish, I'm taking this a little far. I think for a partner, though, if I'm doing a session with their partner, sometimes I'll say to them, if they're talking about something over and over again, like we've gotten to a resolution, Ethan has said, I'm sorry, and you're like, one more thing. And I really think you need to understand that this is what I meant. And just for moving forward, do you understand that, you keep clarifying. You're stuck because you want certainty, you want control, you want the conversation to be wrapped up perfectly with a bow.
Yes.
I would say to that partner, the relationship is over. Yikes. The conversation is over. I think it's very healthy for the partner to not give any more reassurance and to say, we talked about this, we're good, let's move on. Or sometimes I have
great therapy for me, honestly.
Right. Or the partner can say, hey, you can spiral about this until the clock says 8:55. Once it hits 9 o'clock, let's watch our show, and let's move on. Sometimes it takes the partner to say, we're done.
Yeah. God, I didn't even know that was an OCD thing. Like, to be like, I need to wrap it up perfectly. Because I do that.
We could be a dead horse into the ground.
I need a closing argument. I need a closing statement.
And I want him to understand that we are on the same page. I want him to know exactly what I mean.
I need to know, and I need him to repeat it back to me.
Yes, correct.
Oh my God,
that is a compulsion. That is a little bit of reassurance seeking to say, you know exactly what I mean, right? And this won't happen again. And he says, yes, this is what you mean. And he mirrors back to you.
Yeah.
Again, with couples therapy, I love mirroring. I love when a client says, here's my grievance, and the partner says it back to them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this that's healthy.
Yeah.
I never want a partner to shut you down either. What I'm talking about is not invalidating, I'm saying after 45 minutes of the conversation and Carly's saying, but are we on the same page? That's when I need your partner to say, okay. I hear you.
Yeah.
So in no way, I don't want it to become misconstrued of your partner should be validating your feelings, meeting you where you're at, being curious. Even if you're both not sure it's OCD, still lead with curiosity.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you to take that accountability to know I'm taking it too far, and also your partner to say, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
Let's table it.
It's time to wrap it up. Okay, I have to just ask this question because you mentioned it. What do you think about couples therapy for young couples? I always have girls DMing me.
Okay.
Being like, my therapist says I should do couples therapy. And I've always, this is now knowing what I know, I don't believe this as much anymore. But I used to always be like, oh, if you have to go to couples therapy at 22, 23, 24, maybe reevaluate the entire relationship. What's your take on that?
Again, I think as a therapist, I'm obviously going to say I'm pro-therapy.
Of course.
What I do think is I think it takes a mature couple to go to therapy in their 20s. I think it's very healthy. I always tell my clients I think premarital counseling is fabulous. I think if you're thinking about getting engaged and you live together and you want to do a few sessions just to talk about, hey, what are some unmet needs? How can we better communicate? I love the idea of therapy in a young relationship because why wait until we're married with a kid that we realize we can't communicate, we have unmet needs, we have different love languages. So I love the idea of, I have clients who I've done a couple sessions, a few sessions, I don't want to say couple too much, it'll get confusing. I've done a couple of couple sessions with them of just making sure, what are some unmet needs? How can you better communicate? How can you better advocate for yourself? I don't think a relationship is doomed if you do couples therapy when you're young. Again, is it constant bickering? Is it we're not on the same page? Is there disrespect? I think that's when I would be worried. But I don't think necessarily if they're in couples therapy in their 20s, it's doomed.
That's good to know.
Yeah. I'm curious, what's your take on it?
So I used to be so anti. I was like, you're doomed immediately. You're walking into a therapy office at 25, sorry, it's done. I have a whole different perspective now. I want to do premarital counseling. I've never even said this to Ethan, but I think it's so important for people to before you get married, be on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing to do. But I used to be so anti, and I also think
there's a stigma.
There's a stigma, and part of my OCD plays into it where it's the obsession or I don't know what it is. It's this equals this. So it's
assigning meaning to things that don't necessarily have meaning. If we go to couples therapy, that means we have problems. That means it's weak relationship. That means we're going to break up. We shouldn't get married if we're doing couples therapy at 25.
So I wanted to tie that in because I felt it was something that I would have sworn off in the past. And although I don't need that right now, I think it's like a tool that like every couple should have in their back pocket. And unfortunately, my OCD just manifested in a way of like, this is bad. But then a lot of the time it's actually sabotaging because it's sabotaging something that could be like healthy for you.
Yeah.
So
I think it takes a really healthy partner to also want to do it. So I think whenever my clients say, oh, my partner wants to pop into a session, or, oh, do you have any referrals? I think, wow, that's going to be a really successful relationship.
Yeah.
The fact that that partner is open enough to sit on, you know, me and my girl client, he's probably coming in like, these two girls are going to gang up on me, right?
100%.
And I always, when the partner comes in, I express my gratitude. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being open. I've heard amazing things about you. Hey, what do you need? Not just what my client needs. What are you needing here if they have an opinion? So I really think it's great.
Yeah.
And I think therapy is just to be on the same page and to have clarity. Therapy is always going to give you that. So if a young couple needs it, an older couple needs it, why not?
And I think it's so funny you said that. Like, I feel like it's every guy's like trope, or like every guy assumes that he's gonna like walk in and it's gonna be like, the girl's like, you're awful.
Yeah.
You suck. This is all the things you're
therapist
doing
is
wrong.
like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, although I do find that like the girls are just like, we're just like better behaved.
Listen, my male clients, they're probably not listening, but if they are, to die for.
Okay, but guys in therapy are built different.
Yes.
Guys in
the
therapy
men that I treat in therapy are wonderful. They really are.
It's literally my therapist always would say like, we're going to therapy to like help ourselves for the people that like aren't.
Are unhealed around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I've heard that a lot.
So the guy clients that are in therapy, like, hell yeah. I just think it's so funny, the ones that don't believe in it, they come in so afraid because they don't know what's going on.
Especially I see it in where my client has mental health issues and their partner doesn't. I think that's really hard. I think not only is it, you're going to gang up on me, maybe, but I think it's also, I don't really need this. I don't really understand this. And I think that makes it even more important.
Totally.
The fact that your partner can be curious and say, even though I don't understand this and this isn't my thing, I'm still going to come with you and be curious and open.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful.
Green flag.
Yeah.
Huge green flag. Okay. So I want to talk about getting help. First of all, like, just what does an effective OCD treatment look like if we're talking about just over umbrella, like OCD and ROCD?
Yeah.
What is like first line of attack?
Great question. I think definitely speaking to a therapist. I think doing exposure and response prevention therapy, ERP. Exposure therapy is really what we call it. Basically, the best treatment for OCD is to sit in discomfort. Is to not do the compulsion, is to not reassure and seek, and to help your body self-regulate to say, just because something's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
I'm safe, right? Those affirmations. That's the bread and butter of my treatment of we're doing exposure therapy, and I can tell you a little bit more about ERP if you want to know. But the basis of it is getting comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Can you give an example of like something you've done with a client that's exposure therapy?
Yeah. So let's say the client says, I need to lock my door 6 times because I have 6 family members. And if I lock it less than 6, one of them is going to die. Let's say that's the example, which is a little intense, but OCD is a little intense.
Yeah.
We would make a hierarchy. The bottom of the list is things that are uncomfortable but doable to start. Top of the list is, Julia, I'm too dysregulated. I'll probably have a panic attack. We're not there yet. Great. We start very slow. So first, there's going to be psychoeducation. There's going to be validation. There's going to be rapport building. There's going to be all that good therapy stuff before ERP, obviously.
Gotcha.
And then once you start exposure therapy, you start at that hierarchy. You start at the very bottom of the list. And so, for example, I would tell that client, lock the door 5 times, walk to the end of the hallway, and go back and lock it 6 times.
Interesting.
What did you feel at the end of the hallway? Probably discomfort. Maybe tomorrow, lock it 4 times. Go to your elevator. Don't get in. And then go back to your apartment and lock it 6 times. We're elongating their window of tolerance. We're expanding their window. So if you're very anxious and you never do therapy, your window of tolerance is very tiny. Right. You feel like you live in your anxiety bubble and you can't handle anything. By doing exposure therapy, exposing you to your discomfort, we're opening up the window. You can lock your door 5 times and go down to the lobby. And eventually they lock their door, let's say 1 time, they go down to the lobby and they say, oh, I'm not going all the way upstairs. I'm magical thinking. Nobody in my family is going to die. This is my OCD. They're able to detach, to react less, and go on the subway.
That's crazy. I didn't realize, and like I always thought, because I never treated my OCD with really exposure therapy.
Okay.
I was in therapy for a long time doing talk therapy, and then eventually my medication is really what it lowered my anxiety, which lowered my OCD.
Takes the edge off. I will say medication's a great treatment.
I still have it, but it's not as bad. But what are like the, I don't know, like what are the effects of like why do you do the mini first before the big, and why does that work for people? Because I never knew, like I thought exposure therapy was literally you being like, okay, don't lock it 6 times and go away and like sit with that and that's it. So why do you do like the mini and the big, and why is that? The
hierarchy of smallest to biggest.
Yeah.
I think it's just setting up a client for success.
Yeah.
I think you never want to traumatize anybody.
Totally.
And I think if I threw you into the deep end and said, don't lock your door and sit with it, you'd never come back to me. You'd say, my therapist is so mean and doesn't get it. I think because I take that lived-in approach, because I know what it's like to feel anxious and dysregulated, I'm giving my clients exposures that I know will be uncomfortable, but they'll be able to get through. And so why we're doing it is building up their confidence, showing their brain, I can deal with discomfort. I can tolerate it. And we go and go and go, and eventually we get to the top, and they might not even realize it. They might even realize that they locked their door 3 times. Some of my clients come to session, Julia, I locked the door 3 times because I was in such a rush and I just went. And I said, did anything happen? No.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Let's keep up with that.
Happen. Like because you do feel that like lowered anxiety. And I have felt that before. Okay. We need to talk about like any resources that you can give out to people. And then also I want to hear about like your practice, and if there's anyone else that specializes in OCD that you recommend, if you're taking clients, any books you recommend, give us the rundown. Yeah.
So in terms of a book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called the OCD Workbook. And so if somebody says, I'm too scared to go to therapy, or I don't want to pay for it, they don't want to invest in it yet, I would say get the OCD Workbook on Amazon. I think it's a blue-orange book. You'll see it if you're looking for it. And that really breaks it down. There's resources, there are interactive activities you can do within the book. I think that's a great book. I've done it with my clients at the same time we've gone through the book. I think that's really wonderful. No CD, what I said before. I've taken a lot of trainings through them. I trust that company. And then in terms of, I think social media and TikTok, as harmful as it can be, I do think it's great. It's a great resource. I do, because I have clients who will say, you know, they have ROCD and they saw somebody giving examples of ROCD and laughing, and they'll come to session and they'll email it to me. Look at this TikTok. How funny. It's everything I do. I think there's just some exposure and some recognition that's a really helpful resource for people just to feel not alone. I would say that workbook is a good example, no CD, and social media. There's a lot of good infographics and information. Just get off WebMD and Reddit.
Literally Reddit. The Reddit rabbit holes are crazy. And then talk about your practice for
Yes. So I'm a psychotherapist at BU Psychotherapy. It is a boutique private practice in New York. I have my license outside of New York as well. We're a small team. I absolutely love it. I specialize, along with anxiety and OCD, I also specialize in chronic illness, autoimmune, because as I say, I like to specialize in things that I've lived through. So I'm super interesting, all my ailments. But we all have a very relational approach. We're all human. I think that's the new wave of therapists, is we're not this stone cold psychodynamic therapist who's a mystery. I think my practice just wants to grow with you. I think that's kind of the goal at BU Psychotherapy. And I am taking clients. You can find me. My email is julia@bupsychotherapy.com. My Instagram is OCD Therapy with Julia.
Amazing. And we'll have all of your information on my website and then in the description.
Yes, perfect.
So, thank you so much for coming
Thank you for having me.
Fun.
And hopefully this was helpful for whoever listening.
Oh my God, no, it's so good.
Feels
I could listen to you talk about it all day, honestly. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yay. Some good reassurance for you.
For sure.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.